By following these principles, you are not repressing yourself, but you're elevating yourself to a superior platform. By chanting Hare Krishna, one gets a higher taste and you leave material desires behind according to the level of your realization. I think dailiness is such an important factor. I've seen it multiple times. I think Krishna Das talks about it. Tommy Angelo, who's like a Buddhist poker player, brought it to my attention. Dailiness is super important because just kind of like working out or diet, you can get off the path super easy. If it's not daily, it's easy just to it goes a day, it goes a 2 days before you know it's been months. I just kind of feel like with spiritual practice, that muscle element again, you have to do the reps. And I mean, you don't have to do it for hours or even 30 minutes, just 5 minutes, 1 minute. That's kind of my rule per day. I have to do at least 1 minute. And you usually do more, but you can't allow yourself to get behind. It's just too easy. You can substitute this for any spiritual practice, whether you're a Christian, you're going to church. You shouldn't just be going to church on Sunday. You should be doing still a spiritual practice daily. You should be reading Bible verses, etc. I remember when I was a kid, I was always shocked by the fact that church had things daily. They had little, maybe not a full mass, but they had something going on almost daily. And obviously, the church was open daily, so people could come in. And I could kind of see that. They used to have like a 6 a.m. sort of mini mass, and people want to do it before going to work. Even for me, even for these videos, I kind of have a rule. If I'm waking up and I have the time, I should do a video a day if I can, just because it's easy for me to not do these videos, especially doing this Bhakti series. It actually took a lot out of me, surprisingly. The normal videos don't so much, but these are so dense that they take a lot out of me. You have to do what you can. And for me, there's a baby downstairs and it's always crying. And so I used to do more of my practice in the house. I could chant myself, but it could be loud. And so now I feel like I can't chant in the house because I've had a baby once. I know how it is. It's so hard to get a child down, and the walls are really kind of paper thinnish. I just wouldn't be able to fully focus knowing I'm potentially waking up a baby. And they're always home as it is when you have a baby. Somebody's with the baby, right? So the baby's kind of internally home. So I usually do it in the car while I'm driving. And I was doing that before, but I would like also to not have to do it while I'm driving. And so that's the thing too. Your practice, you shouldn't be creating karma with your practice. And I think Maharaji, Ram Dass's guru, used to say, eventually the chanting becomes real. Even though at first you might be doing it just for a sense of duty, then God will actually appear at some point because there's a point where it becomes genuine. It might not be genuine every day, but you need to do it. And then there will be that time, be that day when it is genuine and something changes in you. And that's kind of what happened to me with the chanting. I've never been much of a meditator. I do some meditation. Um, I think, I do it every so often, but I don't think it works as well for me. Some people, they do meditation. I do better with a guided meditation, I find, if I'm, you know, attending something, even if it's online, it'll kind of keep me more focused. I'll turn off my phone. That's kind of why I like Pacific Zen Institute. Um, I don't attend very much anymore, but it's via Zoom. And so it's like I can do it from my house. I don't have to go anywhere. If I have to go to the bathroom, it's, the thing can keep going. No one's seeing me in person. So if I have to disengage. So yeah, I think you have to find what works for you because some things might work for you for now, and then as Ram Dass says, every practice has an expiration date. At some point, it's going to stop working for you, um, and you have to move on or find something else or change things up a little bit. So, but at the end of the day, the dailiness is the most important. If you can't chant, read a spiritual book. If you can't read a spiritual book, take 1 minute in your car before driving. I kind of get the whole Christian pray before the meal. It's like a reminder. If you were to pray before a meal, that's 3 times a day. And I kind of get the Islam style of, whatever, 5 times a day you have to pray. Keeps you doing the dailiness. It keeps you in the midst of everything thinking about more than yourself, of thinking about the eternal, thinking about God or just the universe. It's a way to connect. So I think it's important to have something daily, if not multiple times a day, if you can. And for me, I work from home, so it's been a lot easier. I could be playing something spiritual, podcast while I'm working. I can do that sort of thing. I can take a break here and there. In the office, it was much harder. But even when I was at the office, I'd wait till everyone was gone and I could use the room to chant or to do something. And I find prayer too has been helpful for me, even though if we're all one, who are you praying to? If we're all one being, really. But for some reason, it does help. I kind of find my little talks with God or my prayers do help. And one of my friends used to say too about like, well, how do you maintain the spiritual practice? And I'm giving the same advice I gave her. It's like you just have to do something daily. You can't let it go because she had that problem. It's like she'd do things and then she'd get off the path. And I'm like, for me, that's the only thing that works. You just have to do it daily and tie it with something daily. It's kind of like don't wait to the end of the day because you're so tired that then it's easy to be like, I'm not going to do anything today. I kind of feel like it's best first thing when you wake up, you're brushing your teeth, you're doing this, you might have some gap time, you know, it's you got to find the time. 1 minute a day is nothing, and you can start slowly increasing. And there's some days where it might be hours of this, or I call something like a spiritual Sunday. I usually on Sundays because I'm not going out as much. I can practically spend the whole day doing that. I've attended retreats as well at PZI, just digital retreats or things like that. And I think retreats can be good. I've always enjoyed those if you go to a good organization. Of course, they're overpriced. So I like PZI because you can for $100 it's 6-8 hour in-home retreat versus having to spend thousands of dollars doesn't make sense to me. And I don't like the commercialism. That's my one issue even right now with organized religion. I kind of find obviously they have to keep the lights on. I get it. Like they need something. And, I think in Buddhist literature, the idea is that because they're like a service, they're providing a spiritual refuge. And so the townspeople, you should be feeding the monks. You should be, providing them food and shelter if they need to spend the night. So I get it. But I find often the spiritual materialism starts happening and collection plate kind of stuff of give more and tithe 10% and all this stuff. But then when you need help, they're not there to help you out of a financial situation. So I think there's a balance. Like I think I pay $15 a month to PZI just to be connected and get all the emails and all that stuff. And I don't mind paying that, even though I've hardly used it over the last 2 years, um, because I think it's good to provide a support. $15 a month is fair to me. It's like, okay, like a couple $100 a year that I'm helping to support their organization that gave me a lot. So I think there's like a balance with giving to the church. You should give essentially what you don't care if you lost. Like for me, $15 a month with the prices these days, what is that, like a 3 coffees or something like that? It's not so much. I'm not gonna miss that money necessarily. So I view it as we need to support our spiritual groups, but I kind of feel it kind of gets out of control when I see retreats for thousands of dollars. So that's kind of I guess my point here. Like dailiness should be a cheap thing to do. Like for me, I have a on my phone I can play. I have like YouTube Premium. I think it's like $15 a month, something like that. And so I can play the spiritual music or podcast for not much a month and have my practice guided by having these things. So I think that's the key too. It's really hard to build a spiritual practice from absolutely nothing. Um, but now that I'm farther along, often I don't need much. I don't necessarily need any aid, but I kind of find the aid, the guided meditation, a spiritual book. I think Thich Nhat Hanh talks about that. Just like read one passage a day and think about it. In the morning or something. Just read one line. So there's lots of free resources too. I kind of feel like you shouldn't feel guilty about spending, but probably your spend isn't going to be zero. And to maintain a daily practice, there is a cost. And obviously there's opportunity costs. That 1 minute you're doing spiritual practice, other things aren't getting done. So I think there's a balance. I think Yogananda says something like you can't just be like a priest doing nothing. You need to work. You need to be in the world. You need to experience things, theory versus practice. So it's good to work. It's good to have a real quote unquote life in this 3D world, this delusional world. You have to interact with it. But I think it gives you a chance to put these sayings and these ideas into practice. I used to get annoyed at things, but it's an opportunity. You're getting the opportunity. God / the universe is giving you an opportunity to do better. If you want something, you get a chance to make things better. If you want a better relationship with your family, those bad moments where you don't react is a chance to do better and to make that relationship better. God's not just going to be come down with a magic wand to answer your prayers. It's just God's going to give you the opportunity to make the change by being better. So it's kind of up to you. I think there's a saying like God helps those who help themselves. I think Frederick Douglass said something like, I kept praying, but I needed to move my feet to gain my freedom. There's an element of pick yourself up by your bootstraps Americana to spiritual practice where you do have to do the work. It's like I think some of the Hindu texts say something like you can't pass the exam without studying. You have to do the work to get the enlightenment. You have to build from somewhere. You can't just, you know, magically get there. Maybe some people do. I haven't seen it too much. Usually people that have a depth of spiritual knowledge have put in some work and gone through some things. It's not just from an intellectual place. They've lived through things. They've applied the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge in the real world. And they've not just sat in an ivory tower pontificating. That's kind of my issue with college was that you're getting taught by people that have been in academia and they're kind of isolated and they're not really in the real world. So I kind of feel like you as a spiritual person have to do things.